Hello, hope you and yours are doing well. You're listening to episode 10 of the Employer's Emphasis. I'm your host, Adam Varahachaikol with Employers, America's small business insurance specialist. The Employer's Emphasis features all kinds of content with interviews with people not only from employers, but others within the insurance industry and great nonprofit organizations we support. In this edition, I had the opportunity to chat with the heart of the Employers Affinity Programs team, Wayne Hilston, Vice President of Sales, Programs, and Payroll Alliances, and Kevin Osterman, National Programs Manager. They work closely with associations, trade groups, and strategic business partners to provide cost-effective workers' compensation insurance and additional products and services that help take the work out of workers' comp. As a provider of choice for many associations, Employers offers premium discounts and dividends where permitted, as well as long-term savings through its proven services. Wayne, Kevin, and I go more in depth into what they do, how these alignments benefit both the associations and employers, why it's important for small businesses to try to join an association related to their industry, why it's so rewarding working with the associations, and so much more. We also hear from a few Employers Association friends about our great relationships. So without further ado, joining us now via the Employers line is the heart of the Employers Affinity Programs team, and a few of my favorite people in the company. So introducing first, this person is an experienced insurance professional who is extremely passionate about building long-term profitability and relationships with national program customers and national and regional distribution alliances. He's also one of the biggest Green Bay Packers fans I know. Employers Vice President of Sales, Programs, and Payroll Alliances, Mr. Wayne Hilston. Wayne, welcome to the Employer's Emphasis.
Thank you, Adam. Happy to be here.
Also joining us is another insurance veteran who is super focused and meticulous as the direct contact for multiple, more specifically about a dozen of Employers Affinity Program friends. Impressive work. As I welcome to the show, National Programs Manager, Mr. Kevin Osterman. Thanks for joining us, Kevin.
Thank you, Adam, and glad to be on the call with you and Wayne.
Let's start things off with who you both are. So let's go a little bit more in depth of what you do for employers and how long have you been in the industry for?
I'll start with myself, Adam. Again, Wayne Hilston. I'm the Vice President of Sales for our program team and our payroll alliances. I'm about 3.5 years now at Employers. Came here from a large national carrier where I was for almost 20 years before that. But that whole history essentially being in the program space, and most specifically in my prior life in the affinity program world with a lot of association and franchise partners. So and I thought about this as you asked that question. I think it's actually 35 years in the industry now, which is astounding for someone who looks as young as I do. It's in a variety of roles, both in underwriting, sales, marketing, and sales leadership roles, both on the carrier side and actually on the agency side as well. But my real focus and my real passion for the last 20 some odd years of my career has been in the program world.
Kevin Osterman, and I am one of our national programs managers that I report up to Wayne. So I specifically handle all of our affinity program relationships. So as you mentioned, we have about 12 different affinity programs that we're working with. As far as employers, I've been with us, it'll be 10 years coming up in February. Overall in the industry, gosh, it's coming up about 27 years, I think, next month. Same as Wayne, I've had quite a bit of experience working with some larger national carriers. Prior to coming over to Wayne's team, which is about 3 years ago now, I was one of the sales managers for our Western region, but extremely grateful and happy that Wayne approached me about coming over to the program side of it. Just thoroughly enjoyed so far working with our affinity partnerships here.
Y'all do a lot of great work. And so let's go more in depth about the Employers Affinity Programs and how's it work?
So that's a great question, Adam. I think just to give it a little bit of context, when I first came to Employers to help further build out the program capabilities overall, the concept of an affinity program was relatively new to Employers, even though they had quite a few relationships, very strong, long-standing relationships that other folks in the program world would certainly have defined as an affinity program. So it was very obvious to me very quickly that this was an area, an untapped area almost, if you will, of expertise that the employer's organization had. And affinity programs really at their core are groups of buyers, typically small business buyers, who really make buying decisions in a variety of different components of their industry, not just insurance, often at the direction or on the advice of a trusted advisor. And in an affinity world, that is typically an industry trade association or maybe their franchisor as a part of a franchise organization. We're uniquely set up to work with both. And so how that fits into the grander scheme of things within employers, and if for some folks listening have heard podcasts or interacted with other folks from the employer sales team, you may have heard this, but one of the kind of central mantra to us is meeting the customer how and where they want to buy. And this allows us an opportunity to speak to large groups of customers, of potential customers that are in our appetite, again, through an outlet, through a trusted advisor that can help them understand and direct them to an outlet of vendors such as us, that can provide a very unique service for them. So it works out beautifully within our culture, and also speaks well to how trade associations think, as well as franchisors. So, the affinity program piece fits nicely within that whole overall concept of meeting customers how and where they want to buy. And how that practically comes together is, we look for relationships directly, particularly in the association world as an example, directly with that trade association or with that franchisor to be able to speak to their constituency about the products and services that we provide, and do it in a way that tailors with the value proposition and needs of that industry. And the only way that really works is if we have that sort of close-knit relationship with the governing body, if you will, to really help educate us on what's important to this industry and either the members of their association or their franchisees. So by definition of that, we don't restrict access, for example, to our programs. We're firm believers in the association world, for example, that members should have choice. With the franchise group, in that case, sometimes there maybe is a sponsoring agent, but we don't restrict access to that class of business or to that program quite deliberately to allow for greater access to the members and the franchise group. We also, in the affinity world, really look to work with groups that are within our appetite as a company. So now that actually, for Kevin and I, works out quite well, because employers' appetite is attractive to 75–80% of the small businesses in this economy. So the vast majority of the small business owners out there are going to be somewhere within our appetite. And again, very deliberate, because that allows us to be, quick and nimble in providing, our services to them without having to, recreate, underwriting guidelines or pricing rules, account by account, to give this a really kind of a more fulfilling customer experience. And finally, where this really wraps itself up is in program stewardship. That's really a core value of ours. And we really mean a true collaboration between that association partner, maybe the franchisor. As I said, occasionally there's a sponsoring agent in there, but really the controlling interest of those two groups who speak for those, that community and ourselves. We build out annual stewardship plans in all the major disciplines you would think about, underwriting, sales and marketing, use of social media, claims, audit, actuarial. Between a lot of what Kevin does in managing these stewardship relationships is bringing subject matter experts on the employer side together with their counterparts at the association and the franchise group to the benefit of the members. So we're very deliberately looking for people that want to have that kind of relationship, that want to manage it the way we believe it should be managed. We regularly have dialogue with our partners going through our stewardship plans. They're designed to be nimble, to adapt, to change the needs to the needs of the industry. We're very large in the restaurant and hospitality world as employers, as a company, as well as within our affinity group. Certainly what's been happening across the country this year has meant for a lot of adaptation and change that's needed to happen in how we talk to the members and how we can bring our services to them. So the strategy really is, I guess in a nutshell, is around finding those groups, those buying groups that align with us, that want to be part of that sort of robust stewardship relationship, and then are looking for that long-term stable commitment between the two of us that allows a program of any kind, much less an affinity program, to grow and prosper over time.
Fascinating. And the listeners may or may not know that Employers has a pretty diverse list of affinity programs that we work with, all within their appetite. Great stuff. And so, Kevin, you manage a lot of the relationships. Talk about who we work with.
Yeah, Adam, as you mentioned, we're currently working with 12 different affinity programs. We have 7 within the restaurant and hospitality industry. The California Restaurant Association, they are our oldest program. I think that's coming up on 14 years here next month. We also work with the Arizona Restaurant Association, the Nevada Restaurant Association, Illinois Restaurant Association, the Kentucky Restaurant Association, and then as well as the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, which is our newest affinity program. We just connected up with them last year, the end of last year. And then we also have Hospitality Tennessee. And then besides our restaurant and hospitality affinity programs, we've also have 3 Chamber of Commerce programs. The Montana Chamber, that's one of our oldest programs as well. And then we have a couple that are kind of unique to employers. So the Utah Chamber of Commerce and the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, those are unique in regards to that. We didn't form any kind of a relationship with a specific chamber in either one of those states. And so for our policyholders, they just have to be a member of any chamber throughout either one of the states in Colorado or Utah to be eligible for that program. And then we have the last 2 affinity programs that we have. One is the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, and then Food Service Links, and that's down in Florida. And what that is, it's a food purchasing program for restaurants down there.
What is the benefit for both the associations and employers in these alignments?
Yeah, when I think about that, Adam, there's a couple of things that come to mind first and foremost. There really is for both association and or franchise group sort of a shared vision of what success looks like. If you think about an association, for example, really what one of the things they're focused on is recruitment of new members and retention of current members. If you think about what's important to us, it's growth, acquiring new customers, and retaining our current customers. Their focus is on the value proposition. What encourages somebody to stay a member of their trade association or to buy my franchise versus somebody else's. Well, when you think about how we think about things, we think about customer experience. We think about the claims experience. We're focused on bringing value to the customers that we work with. They desire to educate and to innovate. We desire to educate and to innovate as an organization and helping our customers run a better business, run a smarter business, run a safer business. So when you look at that, what their motivations are and our motivations are, they're very much aligned. So it makes a natural fit for us to collaborate on how we bring all that together for this, large group of buyers, and or prospective buyers. So it's a win for us because it does allow us to speak to a larger group and to use a voice that they're accustomed to listening to, and allows us to spread our value proposition and our message from a trusted source. But it also allows the association to bring relevant vendor relationships and capabilities to their franchisees and or to their members that really mean something to them. And workers' compensation is clearly one of those that really means something to them, not only for managing costs, which is important to every small business owner, but having a safer workplace, which lends itself to being able to recruit employees more easily, makes the buying public more comfortable. There really is a lot of symmetry between how we think about running our business and they think about running theirs or supporting their members in growing their businesses. And when done right, the collaboration between the two is clearly mutually beneficial for us both, and probably most importantly, for the customers.
I think Wayne summed it up greatly there. The one thing that he talked about earlier that I think is a huge driver in the direction of our programs are the stewardship plans. They really kind of paint the picture of the direction that we want to go that year. So we have quarterly stewardship meetings, but we're staying in constant contact with all of the associations, the programs, not only on a quarterly basis, but weekly, biweekly, monthly as well, just to help with the overall, success of the program. That constant contact with them has really been huge, especially the past 6 months during this pandemic.
Kevin, on a high level, how have we helped out our associations?
There's a number of different things that we've been able to provide our association partners, not only during the past 6 months during the pandemic, but just for the overall length of the relationship that we have with them. By being able to provide our value-added services, whether that's claims that we can provide, loss control or fraud services. The one thing that the associations are looking to provide to their members is value. And workers' compensation is a big value that they can offer to their members. Some of the states, they allow us to use an association credit. Workers' compensation is one of the largest expense line items that a business has. In any help that they can get from a pricing standpoint, that's a big benefit from them. Wayne touched on bringing a safety culture to the organization. That helps with controlling their expenses, helps them hire and retain good employees. So, it's just all of the value-added services that we can bring to the table that our associations can use to their members. It helps them attract new members, but also helps with the retention of their members as well. And that's a big component of it.
Why is it important for small businesses to try to join an association related to their industry?
If we had some of the associations folks on, I think they'd probably answer this the same way that I would. First and foremost, advocacy. The association, but certainly even the franchise groups, particularly the larger ones, have the power and the expertise to advocate on behalf either of the industry or of their specific group. You're certainly seeing that now during this health crisis in the restaurant and hospitality industry. The associations, both at the national level and at the state level, advocating on behalf of their industry. But even a life-changing event like that aside, a big part of what your trade association will do for you is advocate on your behalf, on behalf of your industry, legislatively, both locally and at the state level, and even, for many of them at the national level. And there is strength in numbers. So if it's a critical issue to your business and to your industry, you simply don't have the voice that, as one restaurant, as 15,000 restaurants up through a trade association and their leadership will have. And the folks who run these associations that Kevin and I meet are professionals at this. They can distill what is important and what isn't. What is life changing for the industry, good or bad. and then be able to marshal, resources behind it. So advocacy, I think, is number one. Number two is education, and sometimes literally education. The association can be the conduit for you to get certifications done, to even be able to operate in your industry, be it professional or food safety. But they spend quite a bit of time, and where our value adds are often incorporated in educating you about your business, changes in your business, and how to run it smarter, and or safer, which all equates to saving money, in the end. And they spend quite a bit of time on the education front, and things that you would probably not, you'd have a hard time finding on your own, or would be cost prohibitive to hire someone to do for your staff, if you didn't have access to that, through the association or, the franchise headquarters. And then finally, and this is one I don't know if folks often talk, I think, often enough about, but you're part of a big network now. The networking opportunities for you across the rest of your fellow franchise owners or your other members, can present you with, untold opportunities, to learn and to benefit from the experience of others that, other than, maybe running into somebody else, at the grocery market or a church if you're at your kid's school, you don't have as organized a way to be part of. And the associations certainly have frequent events in their chapters across their given states that provide you with a great opportunity to network with your peers. You can't, necessarily put a dollar amount on that, but I think, I would strongly suggest to any one small business owner who might be listening to this and contemplating joining their trade association, I would encourage you to really investigate that for those three reasons, if no others. If the fees in relationship to what you are provided on the other end are quite low, almost astonishingly low in some places, for what you benefit from it, and their sole purpose is to support you, and that's a valuable asset that I think every small business owner should, in their individual industry, should at least investigate.
We actually have a few sound bites from a few of our association friends talking about our great relationships. And so we're going to start off with Jacques Condi, President and CEO of California Restaurant Association. So yeah, let's take a listen.
Hi, it's Jacques Condi, President and CEO of the California Restaurant Association. Since 2007, we have valued the strong partnership we've had with employers as our preferred workers' comp insurance carrier, and our members have really come to rely on them as a trusted advisor. What makes them so extraordinary as a company is not just the best-in-class service that they offer, but it's the people who truly care about California's restaurant industry. As we climb out of this recession, we are thankful to have a partner like Employers who are so committed to our industry in California.
It's very nice comments from Jot. We're flattered to be part of that relationship. And as Kevin mentioned, the longest tenured one here at Employers, and the largest from a premium standpoint. It's interesting. Kevin and I on occasion are at national events with many of Jacques Condi's peers around the country, and it's very obvious the high esteem that they all hold him. California's the largest and most robust of any restaurant association in the country. So it's, again, flattering for us to be part of that group for as long as we have been, and it's gratifying to hear that he feels what we endeavor to do from a stewardship relationship with them is translating to the members, and translating to the members in a way that they value, and that has never been more important than it is right now. There are some estimates that as many as 30% of restaurants in California will close as a result of the pandemic and never reopen. So it is our responsibility as that kind of partner to step forward and try to help in every way we can. And there are stories like that we can share and Kevin can share from other places. But Jot's he's a good friend and an even better partner. And it certainly is, again, gratifying to hear someone of his stature in the industry say so many nice things about us.
And I'll just add, Jot and his team, we primarily work with Mike and Natasha, and, they've just been amazing to work with. The amount of work and the care and the love that they've been showing, not only their association members, but just the entire industry throughout this pandemic, is just truly remarkable. The effort that they've been putting in providing to the industry, it just really shows, the quality of the association, but the quality of the team at CRA as well.
Adam, and I just quickly add on to that, something important, I think, for people to keep in mind relating to what we were just talking about why someone joins their industry trade association. Jot and his team, the folks in Arizona, Nevada, Illinois, North Carolina, others that we work with, much less those that we don't. We know many of them through our industry contacts, are working tirelessly on behalf of the restaurant or hospitality community, member or not. They're not drawing a line of, we're going to go to the State House and talk about this if you're one of ours, but if you're not, you're kind of on your own. Their commitment and a good trade association's commitment to the industry goes beyond who's paying them dues. And we've really seen evidence of that over the last 6 months that is inspiring to watch.
Next, we have Lynn Minges from North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. She is the president and CEO.
At the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, we work hard every day to represent the interest of about 22,000 businesses that comprise our North Carolina hospitality industry. Restaurants and hotels have been especially hard hit during COVID-19, and so there's never been a more important time for us to step up our game and to bring to those restaurant and hotel operations products and services that can help improve their bottom line. One of the important partnerships that we're proud to share and to bring to our members at this time is our new partnership with Employers, who brings a very strong workers' compensation program to our members. We all know that the very best situation is one where employees are safe in the workplace, where injury and risk is controlled, but also where the expenses associated with claims are controlled. And that's really where Employers excels. And so we think that this new product will be just a tremendous new offering to our members, and we look forward to bringing this to our marketplace across North Carolina. On top of that, the team at Employers has been tremendous to work with. Even during COVID-19, they've stepped up and supported our association in incredible ways. They've helped to provide funding for workers who have been displaced during the COVID-19 pandemic, as we were required to separate employees, furlough, and lay off employees. They've also supported the work of our association so that we could continue to serve members across North Carolina. So it's really important that folks consider Employers insurance as they're looking to consider workers' compensation partners. We really don't believe they'll find a stronger, more incredible partner than Employers.
So Lynn and her team, they're our newest affinity programs. We connected with them late last year, so the timing of the pandemic, is slowed the initial growth right from the start. But I have no doubt that this program is going to turn out to be one of our better programs. Primarily because of the work that Lynn and her team do for the restaurant and the hospitality industry in North Carolina. For the short time that we've been working together, completely impressed by the, who they are as individuals, and then also, the pride in the work that they bring to their industry. It truly is remarkable just to kind of sit back and watch what they've been doing for their industry.
Here is Dan Eugelson, Executive Director of the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles.
Hello, Dan Eugelson here with the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. We are the voice that affects change for the rental housing providers in the greater Los Angeles area. We take pride in offering our members valuable resources, and our workers' compensation program with employers is one of those very valuable resources we give to members. We have had a long-standing relationship with employers that goes back to 2012, and we look forward to many, many more years of having them as our preferred workers' compensation carrier.
We talked a fair amount about our restaurant and hospitality relationships, but Kevin referenced early on that we have relationships beyond that in several different industries. And again, this time we're living in right now, the commercial real estate market has also been significantly impacted by the pandemic. California, Southern California in particular, is on the news quite a bit for different restrictions and limitations coming off and on. The whole concept of rent suspension and whether you can evict somebody. So it's a time of great turmoil for their membership as well. And it's really been gratifying to have a partner like that. That again, we have that kind of relationship with, to really be able to sit down and say, what matters now? What of all the things that are keeping your members awake at night, what parts of it can we help with? And then being able to bring those resources to them. And it's, again, it's gratifying, and I think, really speaks to, hopefully, again, stewardship and how we want to do it with our partners, that you can have that kind of collaboration at that deeper level, particularly in times of stress. It's a little bit easier when everything is going really, really well. It's harder when it's not. And if you don't have that kind of strength and that bond between the two of you that a good collaborative stewardship relationship brings, this is when relationships often fracture at times of great stress. And we've been pleased that our partners have actually wanted to bring us in closer, and see value in doing that. And it is our job then to rise to that need. I for one, the leader of this group, couldn't be more proud of Kevin and the rest of our peers and our folks in the field and how they have done that. I think Dan again is another great example of how that is translating, and that's very pleasing to see.
Switching gears here, let's talk about the work all our association friends have done with their foundations to help out folks in their respective industries.
The foundations, virtually all trade associations to one degree, in fact, quite a few larger franchise groups as well, will have a philanthropic arm, a foundation that typically focuses on a couple of key things. One of them is support, and often that takes the form of direct financial support for workers in their industry who are facing some sort of life-changing event. Now that, right now, a lot of that has been related to COVID, to the pandemic, but there's also, natural disasters, great economic downturns locally for one reason or another that can result in layoffs and furloughs. But even in some of the foundations, they have spread that into, addressing things like the opioid crisis, workplace violence. We talk a little bit more about it right now because of the scope of the national emergency that we're dealing with right now. But the foundations, have at their heart providing this kind of resource year-round. Specific to, whatever the needs of that group is. So that's part of it. The second big part of it is, which I think is equally as important, and maybe for the long-term health of their organizations, maybe even more so, is education. So there are typically a very strong desire across the foundations to provide resource, and often in the form of actual scholarships, for young people that want to come into the industry. The restaurant and hospitality industry in particular is famous for this. So I'll use the California Restaurant Association, their foundation, as an example. So Restaurants Care is their arm that provides direct financial relief to workers. A year ago, that was as a result of the fires. This year, a lot of it related to the pandemic, and now also to the fires this year. They've given out, I think at last count, over 1,100 individual grants to workers that have been affected, typically, lost their jobs for one reason or another, to meet very basic needs: food in the refrigerator, pay the rent, pay the utilities, get school supplies, now that school is restarting in some places. I think the North Carolina folks have given out over $1 million in their relief fund, just specifically to, helping, impacted workers. And we've been pleased to be part of that as well with all the foundations. So that's a big part of what they do. And then, again, California is an example. The Prostart Program, which is a national endeavor through high schools, provides a high school curriculum in hospitality and the culinary arts. So, not only does it help spread the name of the industry to some folks who may not have been necessarily considering that, but provides scholarship, provides training. Training down to the level of how to write a resume, how to conduct yourself in an interview, and it's a really important part of their mission, because every industry constantly focus on the next generation. Who's coming in? Can we attract talented people into our world? So you'll find that across trade associations and often with big franchise groups in and out of the restaurant world. You'll find across that space. And again, if you're thinking about joining your trade association, that's something you ought to investigate: is what does their foundation do, and how does that align, with your values? And I think you'll find that the associations, their foundations, are very focused on the future of the industry, as well as providing help to people in the industry when they need it.
And when I got to imagine it's just so rewarding for these associations to do all this great work with their foundations. And so, kind of on a related note, Wayne and Kevin, what would you both say is the most rewarding parts about working with our associations?
The big thing for me is, throughout my insurance career, I've always worked with our independent agents. So this was new to me, working with our associations and getting to know the people, working with people outside of the insurance industry. And so, I'm coming up on 3 years working with our associations, and I've loved every minute of it. Thoroughly enjoyed getting to know, all of the different team members at the associations that we work with. Just seeing kind of the care that they have, not only for their teams, but not only for their members, but the entire industry as a whole. And I think we have truly and really seen that throughout this year, just the amount of work that they're doing on behalf of their industry. But, it's been refreshing to me getting to know who they are, not only from the business side of it, but from the personal side of it as well, in creating those friendships with some of our associations that we work with. It's just been truly amazing seeing the amount of work that they've been doing for the industry. It's heartwarming to see everything that they've been doing.
Yeah, and I would echo everything Kevin just said. I have to admit I'm a little bit biased. My dad ran a large association here in Wisconsin where I live. So I grew up in the association world, so I've been watching this, a good for the majority of my life. But I would say for me, the other part of it, and I've been blessed, employers or not, in my prior life to work with trade associations in a variety of different industries. And what I find so gratifying is it really gives you the opportunity to understand an industry beyond just being numbers on a P&L. I mean, you really have the opportunity to understand what makes, a given industry tick. And then it's just, it's at least for me anyway, it's endlessly fascinating to be part of the evolution of these industries. All of them are in a constant state of change. And it's really fascinating to be part of that, and to be on the inside and have opportunities sometimes to actually be a force for change, and that's unique and that's rare. To really be able to be that attached to a group, even though we're Kevin and I we don't own restaurants, we're not dentists, we're not lawyers, we're not accountants, we don't own apartment buildings, but we're able to be part of that industry to a level that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to know, and then actually be brought into the conversations about where is the industry going, and be part of that in a variety of different groups is just fascinating. And for me, I find that one of the most gratifying parts of the job is to kind of be an insider in a lot of industries that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to get that that far behind the curtain.
How can associations that we haven't formed a coalition with get involved with working with employers?
Yeah, we would love to talk to them. So they can reach out. They can contact myself, Wayne. We can provide our contact information to put up on the podcast here as well. But yeah, we've met quite a few throughout the past few years at different industry events. So if anybody is looking to have a conversation with us, we'd love to have that conversation.
Wonderful. And what is next for your great team?
We're thinking ahead to the future. We want to take this even more broadly across the affinity footprint, I think is the simplest way to put it. Now, as you've heard, we have a lot of relationships, very strong relationships in the restaurant hospitality community, and that's going to continue. As Kevin just mentioned, we're in conversations with several. We're not going to slow that down by any stretch of the imagination. It's industry we know well, that we're clearly passionate about. We have a very strong reputation, and so we'll continue to grow there. But we're also actively looking how we can take this whole philosophy more broadly across the affinity world, in professional services, healthcare, manufacturing. The world's kind of our oyster from that standpoint. That our appetite is so broad that we really and we know through contacts either here or in prior lives that there are some very, very strong trade associations in all of those industries that I think, I hope, I feel will be attracted to how we want to build affinity relationships as well. And those conversations are happening as we speak. So that I think is going to be the next evolution of the affinity team. We'll see our state restaurant association side of the equation continue to expand. But you'll also hear our name in a lot of other industries on the association side as well, where we don't have as big of a footprint quite yet. And then third to that is the franchise world, and again, more franchise groups, probably in part due to their contact with us through some of the state restaurant associations, are interested in a relationship with us, specific around their franchise group. And there are several conversations right now that I'm hoping by the next time we talk, I'll actually be able to say some of their names, and that'll be part, the third leg of that stool, if you will. So I'm excited about it. I know Kevin is, about where this is going to go, and having a national footprint now like we do at Employers has been a game changer for us. The franchise group, other than states where work comp isn't required, we can go wherever your franchisees go, and that's actually in the program world rare air. So we're excited about our positioning here and where that's gonna take us.
And as we begin to wind down here, what I love to do at the end of each interview is to end with some personal or some fun questions. So we already know who Wayne Hilston and Kevin Osterman are as professionals. I think the listeners want to know a little bit more about you both as people. So we'll start off with this first question. What and or who has helped shape you into the person you are today?
Good question. So I can start off here. I think primarily it's been my mom and dad, just kind of their work ethic, growing up in a farming community, having that strong work ethic, learned a lot from them. They both had careers within the food industry. A big reason why I'm, partial to the restaurant associations and the hospitality associations that we work with, just from kind of growing up in that. But, primarily I would say them, and then, just the different managers that I've had throughout my insurance career. I've worked with some great managers. Wayne's right at the top of that list. So just the things that I've learned from them, kind of, helping me and guiding me through my career. It's primarily them.
Yeah, I would say the same. My parents, my dad in particular, both my parents were educators. That's clearly influenced me and the choices I've made, professionally. And what I enjoy most about, particularly in leadership roles, is trying to be a resource and and an educator. But they both had a strong compass when it came to what's standing behind what you believe and being having the stamina to drive those values and those goals forward. I've had some great. I've been able to work with some great leaders as well over my time. Ray Wise, who's our Chief Sales and Marketing Officer here, certainly being at the top of that list. And I guess if I had to add a third, I know you didn't ask for this many, but if I had to add a third, I would honestly say it's my wife. She is she is a great sounding board for me, and always has been, and an almost unerring compass for people, and that's and over the years, I've learned to trust her judgment and bounce things off of her as well. And every time I've listened, I've been better for it, and every time I haven't, I wish I'd listened.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
What's something you both have failed at, but have learned so much from? And this can be personal or professional.
How much time do we have?
Yeah.
Looking back throughout my career, the one thing that really stands out to me and sticks out in my mind is, when I've been part of a project team or just trying to figure out problems, that have come up in my daily work or, working with some of my agencies in the past is, not really looking at the root causes of that problem, what's really driving that problem to exist. And what I've tried to do is just come up quickly with a solution to it. And that solution may not even be, what we were trying to solve for. So, if I had to do a lot of those projects that I was on and trying to fix the problems that I've had, I'd really try to look at, what are the true root causes of that problem? What is really driving that, instead of trying to, rush to find a solution without really knowing, why that problem exists. So, if I had all of those to do over again, I'd spend more time trying to figure out what is the true root cause of that problem. Yeah,
Adam, I've got a very specific example because I think about it periodically as a way to check myself sometimes. This is a long time ago now, but I ran the commercial department at the time, the largest independent agency here in Wisconsin. And I kind of went from a rep in the field, a marketing rep in the field, to running that sales operation with nothing in between. So it was a giant leap at the time, and I really struggled for the first year I was in that job. And I realized in hindsight, looking back on it, part of the reason I really struggled is I wasn't allowing myself to be humble enough to really listen for good advice and seek it out. it was, clearly a sign of, I think professionally of immaturity at where I was at that time professionally. And then I wasn't humble enough to really, seek out and listen to help. And I learned that the hard way on the job. And in that kind of role, that means everybody underneath you sort of, suffers with that too. I mean, I figured it out in the end, but it shouldn't have taken that long. And when we talk about humble, hungry, smart here at Employers, it really speaks to me because I know what it feels like when you don't do those things and when you don't behave that way and the ripple effect it has, on others and on you. And I've never forgotten that lesson, and I've tried very hard in the years since to remember that whenever it feels like I'm struggling communicating or I'm struggling affecting change. Is it really everybody around me, or is it really maybe me? And it didn't end up being a failure in the end, though I think it was probably closer than I realized at a couple of points. But that sticks with me to this day.
Both of you, great answers, good stuff. What's something that you're both curious about right now? And again, this can be personal or professional.
For me, obviously, is, when are we going to get through this pandemic? When is everything going to kind of open back up and start to become the new normal, whatever that may entail going forward. But, I'm definitely looking forward to, to helping our association partners, our affinity programs that we have, continuing to help them come out of this, helping the members as much as we can as well. So for me, that's what I'm most curious about is when is this going to be over?
I'm a history buff. I was actually a history teacher coming out of college. So I tend to have that lens on things. I'm really curious to see how history will judge this time period and even more curious about what comes out of it. Because there's often great innovation that comes out of, crises like this, and, some of which, we don't know about sitting here right now and what that's going to look like. And I'm intensely curious to see, how, the world, this country evolves from something like this for better or worse. And I think a lot of it actually will be for the better. But I'm intensely curious to see how that's going to go and how, when we look at this 5, 10, 15 years from now, how history will have measured how we as a generation handled this crisis.
So Wayne, you said you're a history buff. What is your favorite time period in history?
When I was younger, and to a degree still am, a huge Civil War buff. And I've read everything there is to read. And still to this day, I'll find something new. I'm going to read Grant's autobiography now. That's one of my my stay-at-home reads that's on my list that I just picked up. So I for whatever reason, I love that time period and find a lot of lessons to be learned from that time period that are applicable now.
I'd really like to be able to go back in time to see what it was like when my grandparents were growing up, when my great-grandparents were growing up, what it was like back then with all of the communication devices, that we have now. So that's probably what I would, if I could travel back in time, that's probably the time that I would travel back to.
Talk about what you both like to do for fun.
Well, you already mentioned I'm a huge Packer fan. So I do that for fun when they're winning. Big Wisconsin fan. I love college sports of just about every variety. That's a passion. A big outdoorsman, and I really enjoy that. And finding more and more opportunities to be out in the woods or on the water. Greatly enjoy that. And I'm an avid reader, and I'm a grandparent. So when we can get back to it again, like spending time with the family and with the grandkids. They're getting a little older now, and they're and more rambunctious, and we have more to talk about. So that's the other thing I do for fun.
I'm like Wayne. I'm a huge college sports fan. So this time of year, Saturdays with college football, It's my favorite time of the year. So love going to games as much as I can. But, my wife and I, we love riding our bikes. So, we try to get out a few times a week on our bikes. We've got a ton of trails by us, so it makes it pretty easy to do that. So just love being outside.
Last personal fun question is, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would go back to teaching, and coaching. I've been, away from that for a long time, but I still miss it. But honestly, I think if I could do, and clearly influenced by a lot of what we're involved in now, I would go. I'd work on the association side. I would love to run somebody's foundation. I would really enjoy that at this point in my life. And if I weren't doing this, I think that's what I'd be doing.
For me, I love being outside. I actually love doing yard work. I think I would probably like being a landscape architect, designing, different yards, water features, patios, that kind of stuff.
How do you do so? Because I have a bad back and I'm trying to landscape my yard, which is a big mess. And I pull on my back all the time. How do you do it, man?
You got to have a picture of it and kind of vision what it looks like when it's fully grown. So that's my advice. That I have a friend, a landscape architect, and that's the advice he gave me many years ago is, when you're starting to plant, whether it's trees or flowers or bushes, vision what it looks like when it's fully grown.
I like that.
And I hire people like Kevin.
There we go.
Yeah.
Back problem averted.
Totally averted. He can tell me his vision of what it's going to look like when it's done, and I'll either nod my head yes or shake my head no, and then have at it. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you two would like to add before we wrap up here?
Adam, thank you for hosting this podcast. I think it's great to be able to kind of get the exposure out and more awareness out about our just fantastic association programs that we have, our affinity programs here at Employers. As Wayne said, this is kind of just the beginning. Our plan is to grow and expand different industries within our appetite as well. So I know that's one thing I'm most looking forward to is kind of where do we go with this?
And let me echo that. Thanks to you, Adam, for hosting the podcast. This was a lot of fun, and I hope folks find it informational, if nothing else, on how we're thinking about things. I think, too, we'd be remiss if we didn't, from my standpoint, again, thank the Employers Organization for being so supportive of the affinity strategy. We've had nothing but hands reaching out to us to help and help grow out this portion of our portfolio. As Kevin said, we're hardly maxed out. There's so much more that we can do and plan on doing, and the organization and our field and underwriting teams have been very, very supportive, both in bringing new opportunities to us and supporting growth of the ones that we have. So our sales and underwriting teams, our agents, have been very supportive, and we greatly appreciate it. And we'll be counting on them to take this ride with us as we go forward.
Wayne Hilston and Kevin Osterman, the heart of the Affinity Programs team. Thank you both so much again for joining us. And thank you for listening to this edition of the Employer's Emphasis. If you like the podcast, we'd love for you to follow or subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Podbean or Podcast Server, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. And that way you'll be notified every time a new episode is uploaded. Before we go, head to our website at employers.com and follow our social media pages on Facebook by searching for Employers, America's Small Business Insurance Specialist. Search Employers on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter and Instagram at the handle @employers_INS. And we have a channel on YouTube under the name Employers Video, all one word. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Adam Varahachaikol with the Employer's Emphasis, and we'll catch you next time.